Okay, I will explain a new way to use happiness data to answer this question, which is a critical question for the design of environmental policies. Look at this. This is an image of environmental wreckage, and the question is, how much are we willing to contribute to avoid it? Do we want strong or weak environmental policies, or even no policy? This is framed by economists with language of discount rate of the distant future. It is a future that does not concern generations who are alive now, concern the next generations. And the issue is, how much is the current value of the future benefits deriving from environmental policies? If we discount this value substantially, what will happen is that no policy is the preferable outcome. In general, cost benefits analysis of environmental protection projects is crucially hanging on the value of this discount rate. How much is the current value of future benefits? And it is very sensible. Even tiny changes to the discount rate produce totally different results. Virtually any policy can be justified with a different choice of the discount rate. So I will use this language, as you're not all economists. Do we care about future generations? We have two opposite views on this. One is this: we don't care. What we want, what we care for, is our current standard of life. We are not really interested in future standards of life. And basically, environmental degradation is a reasonable price to be paid for current prosperity. And it's plenty of environmental economists that say this. And this is another view. This lady is a Swedish lady, and the wave you see is the tsunami in Thailand years ago. And she's running towards the tsunami to rescue her kids, which are those 3 kids. So this is an image of very strong concern for the future. She's risking her life for her descendants. This is a totally different view. And many other people say this, that we are really concerned with the future. These two different views on how much we care about future generations lead to opposite explanations of current unsustainability of the economic system. This view, we don't care about the future, could be defined as a naturalist view, because unsustainability derives from human nature. We are intertemporally greedy, which is an aspect of the more general greediness of human beings. And this other is an institutional explanation of why we are unsustainable. Unsustainability arises from some failure of the institutions of our societies. These are some examples. Nicholas Stern defined the climate change as a result of the greatest market failure the world has seen. Market failure is a terminology that economists use to indicate this. People pollute a lot because to pollute is not costly, has no price. Basically, it's a failure of the market system, which has an incomplete system of prices. And then we have people blaming the global corporations, which are spreading consumerism all over the world. Then there is people which blames capitalism too court. It is the search of profit which is destroying our environment. So in all this explanation, human nature has no role. We are not intertemporally greedy. That's not the explanation. It's a failure of the economic system. And these two positions are at the basis of the controversies on what to do with climate change. Stern, which made the first big report on climate change, claimed that for immediate support, immediate action to reduce global warming. And this was based on the assumption of a very low discount rate. People assign to future benefits the same value to current benefits. And he was heavily criticized by economists, saying that asset markets, financial markets revealed very high discount rates, close to 6%. And if you discount by 6% per year, something which is projected for 100 or 200 years, there's nothing which is convenient to do now. Doing nothing is the best option. And all these controversies are fed by the extreme scarcity of data on how we value the future, on the societal evaluation of the future. Basically, we have two sources of information. The first one is revealed preferences, preferences revealed by financial markets. But that's meaningless, because the financial markets, doesn't exist any asset which has an intergenerational maturity so long. So financial markets provide information on how much the society values the future within one generation as a maximum, not any intergenerational evaluation. And yet, so other ways to calculate how much we care for the future have been found. The main one is this: stated preferences. People are asked their preferences about very complex trade-offs between current and future outcomes. How much would you pay to avoid this future scenario of degradation? These kind of questions. But these questions are cognitively very complicated to answer, and it is very plausible that people do not undertake the effort to answer accurately, reflecting their preferences. And then there's a problem on which Martin Binder insisted a lot this morning, the purchase of moral satisfaction, which may affect this kind of answers. So we have to look for another way, and this is our idea, our approach. We derive the preferences from happiness data. How? Using happiness data and questions on respondents' view of the distant future. What kind of future do people expect for next generations? A bleak or a rosy future, brilliant or black? If, this is the critical point, if people care about future generations, we should find, if people don't care for future generations, we should find that expectations for the future, whatever they are, do not affect current happiness. I mean, if we find that people can be happy, even if they see a bleak future, that means that people don't care about the future. And if people care about the future, their expectations on the distant future should affect their current happiness. I should be happier if I see a rosy future. I should be unhappier if I see a bleak future. This is the key idea. So what we do is to estimate this kind of equation. Subjective well-being is regressed on the expectation of the future plus the standard set of controls. This is an OLS. And what we expect is that if people don't care for the future, this coefficient beta 1 should be 0 or not significant. And if we care for the future, this coefficient should be positive. So let's see the result. These are the data sets that we use. We use 7 data sets where there are many questions. They're all different, but they all relate to the future of next generations. You can, I don't know if you can read it from there. The World Value Survey has this question: for each of the following pair of statements, tell me which one comes closest to your own views. Humanity has a bright future or a bleak future. And the other questions are similar. Look, for instance, to this, life for next generation. Generally speaking, do you think that life of those who are children today will be easier or more difficult in the future? See, all similar questions, all different. all related to the future of next generations. Let's see results on the World Value Survey. Bleak future attracts a very high coefficient, which is comparable in size to well-known regressors of happiness, like being married or being unemployed. The size is similar. But of course, this is another important thing. There's no difference between people different in age, in having or not children, gender, marital status, educational level. Absolutely no difference. The future seems to be important for everybody. And this suggests that the concern for the very long-term future is not shaped by self-interest. But of course, we may have a problem of endogeneity, and especially of reverse causation. Happier people may tend to have more optimistic views about the future and vice versa. Or we may have a different possibility. More depressed individuals usually tend to self-identify as losers, so they may expect for themselves a bleak future while exaggerating the brightness of others' future, including the brightness of future generations. In all these cases, future expectations and current happiness are endogenous. How to get out of this? We found two instruments: confidence in the political system and confidence in science. Why? Because solving or mitigating ecological crisis requires strong political action, strong collective action. And science, of course, can significantly contribute to solve these problems. And it already did with the enormous progress of wind and solar generation of energy. And then they are valid instruments, because trust in politics and science is not a standard regressor of subjective well-being, and higher trust in politics and science in our database, in all of our databases, is related to better expectations of the future, and it is now related to subjective well-being. These are the results on the World Value Survey, divided for developed, transition, developing countries and old countries. As you see, the instrumented coefficients grow everywhere, substantially, and they are big and highly significant. This is a result on the US General Social Survey, and again, the coefficient grows a lot when it is instrumented. This is a result on the European Social Survey. Again, the coefficient becomes much bigger. First conclusion. This approach, we call it derived preferences, because time preference is derived from happiness data. And this approach overcomes the limitations of revealed and stated preferences. Especially, we don't have a problem of purchase of moral satisfaction. We don't have cognitively complicated questions. So we don't have those problems. The results suggest that people are not intertemporally greedy. The vision of the future is an important component of current happiness. In the World Value Survey, for example, the minimum estimate that we get is that those who expect that humanity has a bleak future will be almost 13% less happy than those who expect a bright future. And this result is confirmed on many data sets and different wordings, etc. So, these findings support institutionalist view and not naturalist view of unsustainability. I will now tell you our personal view, institutional view, which is based on the idea of defensive growth. This is a mathematical model, but as not all of you are economists, I will explain it through drawings. This is a story of two cities, at the beginning of our story, those two cities, two cities, three-level cities, and they are identical at the beginning of our story. And at the beginning of our story, an ecological crisis comes. Sorry. So people worry. You see the water level rises and people get and it fills up with waste and people get very worried for their future, for their kids. And until this moment, these two cities are identical, but now there's an important difference between these two cities becomes very important in determining the future evolution. And the difference is this, the only difference. In Collaborandia, they trust their political system, and in Privatopolis, they don't. Independently on the reason why this happens, this changes everything. Let's see the reaction in Collaborandia, the place where people trust their political system. People meet, discuss. This is the mayor of the city and symbolizes cooperation between the political system and the people, and they make a common project, a shared project to solve the crisis. They want renewable energy, sustainable transportation, and they plant trees. And look at here. They decide that at 6 o'clock, nobody will work anymore there because they want to produce less, they want to consume less in order to solve the ecological crisis. Nothing similar can happen in Privatopolis because in Privatopolis they do not trust their political system. This is Privatopolis. Sorry, there's a problem. Okay, this is the reaction in Privatopolis. This is the representative couple of Privatopolis. They just have a kid, and they are thinking of the future. I'm finishing. They are thinking of the future of their kid when he will grow adult, and they are imagining that the water level will have risen a lot. The lower stratum of the city will be threatened. And living there will be a kind of nightmare. A better situation, it's in the intermediate level of the city and even better on the top level. And the difference between living in one or another level is money. Here, poor people live, the middle class and the rich people. So what they decide to do is to make money, to allow their kid to live, not to live here, to escape from this terrible place. They decide to work more, to accumulate money, to leave some money to their kid. So the reactions are totally different. In Privatopolis, they have a private reaction to protect their kids, while in Collaborandia, they have a common reaction, a collective reaction. Evolution of the two cities. 6 o'clock in one day in Collaborandia, people are enjoying, nobody's working there, and people are enjoying a square with all facilities, sustainable, nice place. Same time, same day, same place in Privatopolis. They are all rushing, they are all working, they are all making money. And this is the end of our story. 30 years later, Collaborandia hasn't changed that much its aspect. The ecological crisis is under control. They even have a beach, and the city hasn't changed its aspect because this symbolizes the fact that GDP has not grown in Collaborandia, but they enjoy a good quality of collective life. Well, and this is Privatopolis. The crisis is out of control. The water has risen a lot. Living in this place is awful. And all the city has grown a lot. This symbolizes the fact that GDP is much higher. They experience a lot of economic growth, but they live very badly. And the everything that concerns the collective quality of life is awful. The message is, in both of these cities, the discount rate, people care for future generations. But the way they protect future generations is totally different, and it depends on trust, on their trust in collective action. And the political system is the main institutional form of collective action. So where there is no trust in collective action, people act privately. But the result of their private action is to worsen the situation. The private reaction to protect their descendants creates economic growth, which worsens the collective crisis. So the message is, this is just one of the possible institutionalist views, which are consistent with the idea that people have strong concerns for future generations. But in this way, this is a different explanation of unsustainability from the current one, from the one based on the low interest of people for the future. People are interested in the future, but they try to protect privately the future generations. This is a model of defensive growth, and the message is, if we don't rebuild trust in collective action and in the political system, we will not able to be sustainable. And how to rebuild it, this is another issue. I have no time for that. And we have a couple of minutes. We'll back to questions.
Thank you. The slightly depressing talk. I guess I'm wondering about your measure of trust and what exactly the respondents in your survey are being asked. So, for example, I can trust the government to collect taxes, run the public transport system. I do not trust them to solve global environmental problems. So I don't know how much you delve into the constructs, epistemology of trust in the paper.
So thank you for the presentation. Just like to ask you, how do you include uncertainty? Because if you are interested by the future, people have to deal with uncertainty. And I don't know if you know this approach, which is based on viability, because most of the time people have more to deal with radical innovation rather to be able to optimize. So it's better to try to take a decision on time rather to try to optimize something we cannot do finally because we don't have the complete information. And then how to deal with this kind of uncertainty, we don't know, in fact. And that's the idea.
Thank you very much. So to build Collaborandia, we need collective action, social capital, trust, and a political system that is dynamic, that has participation. So what could be the main factors that could build these several dimensions, that could build this collective action, social capital, truth, and so forth? What do you think about, I'm thinking about my work, sorry, about inequality factors? Does equality could be a way to improve collective action, to improve social capital, to improve the trust and the political system that is more dynamic? Thank you.
Just very quick comments. I'm not sure how it would affect your results, but in our interviews with people about their life satisfaction, we sometimes ask them whether they thought about themselves only or kind of wider society. And people usually say that they only thought about themselves. It's a UK sample. And that if they thought about wider society, they would give lower scores. So it's possible that I think your results would be underestimated. They would be even bigger. So, yeah.
Measures of trust, they depend on the survey. In some survey, there is trust in Congress, in some other trust in government, in some others trust in democracy, in the political system. So it depends. And trust in science. We have trust in science only in one of those databases, and they ask whether people. I don't remember exactly, to tell you the truth. Okay, I'll watch it and tell you later. And uncertainty in the model that we use, there's no uncertainty. It's a simplified model, but uncertainty wouldn't change this, because to trigger the mechanism that leads Privatopolis to unsustainability, fear of the future is enough. If you fear that the future will be terrible and your kid will be in a mess, then you will act in the same way. I'm convinced that introducing stochastic factors in the model wouldn't change the result. And rebuilding trust, that's the most complicated question. The answer depends on why people lost totally trust in collective action. Because if you look at the data, they are impressive. Trust in, look at the UK. Look at the US, trust in government. These data are common to all industrial countries. We really live in Privatopolis. Privatopolis has two characteristics. People care for the future and people don't trust with the political system. And this is exactly the world we are living in. So we are in a mess. We have to rebuild trust in collective action to avoid this kind of private reactions. Why did people lose trust in the political system? According to very influential political scientists, the reason is called post-democracy. Simply, democracy is not working. We are facing an extreme deterioration of the quality of democratic decisions. Basically, they say that democracy has become more and more dependent on big business. That's the decisive influence on democratic decisions. How to, so we can rebuild trust in democracy by reducing the influence of big business on democratic decision. How to do that? That's a very complicated question and would require an entire seminar to answer. However, most of the contribution focus on the financing mechanism of the political system. In the US, for instance, there is an enormous debate on this, even with extreme positions like people saying that all financing to candidates and political parties come from for-profit organizations should be banned. And there's an enormous quantity of proposals on this. So I think I have no time to discuss this. But the point is, democracy can be changed. The current shape of democracy is a heritage of the 20th century and was projected in a totally different world, in which we had, okay, let it be, but it can be changed. Beginning with the funding mechanism of the political system. That's a critical question. You want to know more, but I have no time. I have this guy here which is pressing me to stop.